Hey everybody, John here from Nkamesh.com, and in today's video you're going to discover 8 different ideas that you can implement on your own split test to improve your conversions and increase your ROI. But not only will I give you the ideas, I'll also talk you through a little bit of the evaluation process that goes into deciding which one is right for you. We'll talk about the pros, the cons, the cost, and the benefits of each one. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Alrighty, so here we go, and we've got our little icon here. This is my little doodles here for our split testing idea, and that's the whole goal, right? You want to make slow, small little tweaks where you're always testing and always reaching higher highs and higher lows. So here we go. The first one that most people are going to think about when they consider split testing is your headline. And this one is an easy one, right? So when it comes to evaluating if it makes sense for you to do a headline, what you need to think about is the cost and the benefit. And in reality, when we're talking about cost and benefit, the cost we're normally doing is just the time. It's the time and the effort and maybe the money, if you have a team who's creating content for you, of actually implementing this process here, this test. So the cost here is minimal. It's like maybe a 1 out of 10, right? If we're going to do an evaluation like this. It really takes no additional effort to create variation A versus variation B of your headlines. But then again, when it comes to the benefit, what can you actually get? The headline is one of the most critical pieces of your page. I mean, obviously all the content matters, but if they don't even get past the headline, then you have no chance of converting them with your additional content there. So in terms of benefit, I would say it's maybe like a 5, a 6 out of 10. It has a very significant benefit, which means this is a highly leveraged thing you can test. If you're testing your headlines, it takes a few minutes to implement, but it can save you a lot of money when it comes to ROI. So that is number 1. What is number 2? And as we're testing these, I want to make sure we evaluate them and kind of show the breakdown as we're going through this process. So if we have our benefits here, which is 1 to 10, 10 being good, and 1 being not so good. And we have our costs where we have 1 here and 10 here, but here it's kind of flipped. So low cost is good and high cost is not good. We can kind of evaluate and see how these all plot out as we go through this evaluation process. So with the headline example here, low cost, medium benefit, we're going to put our low cost and medium benefit headline. Kind of works out to being right about there. Okay, so that's a good one. So what's number 2? So number 2, I would say, is video versus image, or even image slash nothing, just copy all around. So this would be that example of you have your landing page, you have your headline here, and you decide, do you want to test out a video sales letter maybe, or you have this guy here, and it's, again, the same headline, but then just maybe an image instead. Which one of these will work better? If you listen to all the gurus out there, they'll tell you that video, it always converts better. If you look at this Nkamesh channel, it's heavy on video. That's just because it's easier for me to create. But does it necessarily perform better? I'm not entirely sure. So let's think about the cost versus the benefit again. So here, it definitely takes more cost for you to create a video versus just swapping out text A versus text B. So here, I would say the cost is maybe about a 5 out of 10. Like, it takes some time for you to go through and create and make these entirely separate landing pages. And the benefit. So is it going to be as beneficial as the headline? Probably. More? Maybe not. Let's leave this also at about a 5 out of 10 on the benefit scale. It can definitely attract a certain audience more than others, but it's going to come at a greater cost. So let's go ahead and plot this guy as well. So we have basically a 5 and a 5. So our video versus image is going to show up right about here. Video versus image. We'll just kind of box these out so we can kind of see where they're falling in. So let's move on. What's number 3? So number 3 is short form versus long form. So this is short versus long. So you have some offers, which is just a video and a buy button, right? That's a very classic formula that we have seen, and a headline, of course, up top. But then you all have some others where it just goes on for pages and pages and pages. And then you'll have maybe a buy button down here, right? So these are, let me move myself out of the way. You have a buy button down there. So these are obviously different forms, different formats of doing a sales process. If this is an opt-in page versus a sales page, you might need more content on the sales page over here than you would on a simple opt-in page. So you have to think about your intent, your messaging, what you need, but ultimately you're not going to know which one converts better unless you test them against each other. So let's take a look at what the cost and the benefit is of this. So from a cost perspective, obviously this is going to take a ton of time to go from a very short one to a very long one. So I'm going to give the cost here probably about let's give it a 9 out of 10. Like, this is a big deal to completely change out the entire page itself. And the benefit, it's going to definitely have some benefit, but it's probably going to be in that, maybe a 6 to 7 range, or maybe a 5 to 6 range. It's a guess. You won't know unless you test it, but it's going to have a moderate impact for a lot of work. So let's go ahead and put the heavy cost and medium impact. Let's do long versus short over here. Now, as you guys remember, where you want to kind of live in is this world, and then you got kind of the okay world and the world you want to avoid. This is kind of the thinking process you're going through when you're evaluating what the next test is that you want to implement. All right, so now let's go into number 4. And number 4 is kind of a build on the headline, but it can go a bit deeper than this. And this is going to be a pain versus a pleasure focus point when it comes to your copywriting. I'm not going to get into all the copywriting tips. Obviously, in this one, I'm still developing as a copywriter myself. But in general, people get motivated by pain or pleasure, or a combination of the both. So this can be an adjustment to your headline, to your imagery, to your video. Really, this is an up for grabs way to implement this, but the idea here is that you're going to kind of change the focal point of how you're attracting and converting your audience. So when it comes to a cost, this is going to be, it can be a one cost just by implementing a different headline, or it could be a big cost by implementing the entire copy. Let's go ahead and put it at maybe like a 4 out of 10, right? Like it's totally it's totally relative to what it is you're testing. And the benefit here, because you're actually changing the psychological trigger that you're trying to work on, it can be a big impact as well. So let's make this maybe a 6 out of 10 as well. So let's plot this guy. Pain versus pleasure is a 4 on the cost and a 6 over here. So we'll kind of say maybe over here. It's going to get really messy. I apologize. Pain versus pleasure. All right. Okay, another one that is very popular to test is one-step versus two-step when it comes to opt-ins or checkout forms. So what this looks like is you've got the one-step where on the checkout side you've got form, billing, zip code, whatever, and then finally credit card, and then the buy button. On the two-step side, you've got this, where you've got on step 1 you've got name and email, and step 2, where this is going to take you over to that next page. We're now just going to get into whatever details you want with the credit card and the buy. So that's what the general idea of the one-step versus the two-step. This splits up the form, so it makes it not so intimidating for a user when they first see the step, but it also requires one or two more clicks to implement. So is it going to always work better? What I have seen is that two-step tends to work better than one-step, but it's something that you would need to test. And then on the opt-in form as well, you've got this where you say get thing, and you've got form, and submit, versus get thing with a button, which then once they click it, it kind of pops up into that light box which asks for the information. So what people say, what the general psychology here is, the two-step works better because people are making a micro commitment by clicking that button. They've already said a little mini yes inside their head, so they're more likely to go through the process of the pain of it, filling in their information and hitting that button. So that's something you can test. When it comes to cost versus benefit, really doesn't take a whole lot to implement this. If you're using the right tools, if you're using like a Thrive Leads or a Thrive Architect, it's very easy to do one-step versus two-step. And if you're using cart flows for your checkout form or Thrive Cart or any of those advanced marketing cart platforms, very easy to do. Let's give this maybe a 2 out of 10 to implement. And benefit can be maybe a 4. It's not a huge one, but it's also not a very tough test to do. So we've got one-step versus two-step, which is going to live somewhere around here. One step versus two step would be about that type of a test you could do. So number 7, we're going to actually test out different price points. So obviously this is specific to selling something, but you can test out different price points. And people are like, oh, it's not fair. If I offer item A at $5 and then to another person I offer it at $27, that's not fair to the person who paid more. That's not really true. Like, prices change all the time. You go to the gas pump and the price changes from day to day. You're totally allowed to test your pricing points and to not feel bad about it, because what happens is sometimes people who pay little also they perceive less value than those who pay a lot. They're going to be actually happier and more likely to implement the advice if they pay more. It's kind of crazy, it's kind of backwards, but it's psychology and we are silly humans, right? So we have to live in the world that we actually live in. So what you'd probably want to do is test something like maybe a free trial, depending on what it is you're selling, right? Or maybe test out a $7 versus $27. And when you're doing your split test, if you're using something like a Split Hero or a Thrive Optimize, you can check to make sure that you maximize and you optimize for revenue and not necessarily on overall conversions here. So when it comes to a cost and benefit, there's going to be more cost, because if you're using something like a cart flow, you'll probably need to create a different coupon code or a different product altogether and set some of those things up and then swap out how it all works. So there's going to be some cost in doing this, but the benefit can also be huge if your price point is really what's sticking with your audience. So when it comes to cost, I'll maybe give this a 6 out of 10, and benefit, because also you'll not only need to change the product, but potentially some of the copy in your opt-in form or your sales page will need to change to reflect that new price point. And then the benefit here can also be about a 6. So we're kind of living in happy land over here of about a 6 and a 6. So maybe price lives here. And then finally, number 8, the 8th thing that I would recommend you take a look at testing is kind of a scary one, but it's actually your entire offer. Like, what happens if the offer you have is just not the right offer? And in previous videos, I talk about, doing split tests between cheat sheets and webinars, or cheat sheets and case studies and things like that. This is going to be where you're going to send them to entirely different pages. So this is going to be like webinar, and this is going to be case study. And the problem, not the problem, but the cost in this is not just designing 2 different pages, but these probably go into 2 different email sequences, right? They have 2 different tagging structures and segmentations inside of your autoresponders. So your convert kit or whatever you use is going to also need to be kind of built out, and it's going to be a little more work, right? But it could be worth it if you realize you have a total, if you have a dud over here, if your webinar is just not enticing anybody, but a simple case study that shows, I probably shouldn't have made an X there. I probably should have done something like this, or a checkbox. So if you find out that your case studies is what people are interested in, if you're like an agency and you're trying to get clients, they want to see your past results and your past work, it would definitely be worth doing that type of a split test to make sure that you're giving your people what actually converts them. So when it comes to cost, yeah, this is probably a 10. But when it comes to benefit, obviously, it doesn't matter how good your copy is if your offer stinks, right? Let's just be honest. If people don't want what you have, it's like giving water to a drowning man. It doesn't matter how much you can sell that water. If they're drowning, they probably don't want your water, right? I don't know if that was a good example or not. So on terms of benefit, I'm not going to give it a 10 because it's not the first place. I wouldn't want you to think it's a 1-to-1 cost versus benefit. Maybe it's a 7. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this up here. We're kind of making some doodles here. So cost is 10, benefit is about a 7. It's going to live over here in testing out your offer. All right, so what do you take away from this? What do you do with all this new information that you have? Well, if you have the proper tools at your disposal, one of which being Split Hero, which I'll talk about in just a second, if you have the right tools where it's easy for you to do these tests, what I'd recommend you do is you just create these bands. And what you want to look at is, depending on how you feel, right? There has to be some gut in this. Just don't make all your decisions on your gut. But when it comes to making a hypothesis, a guess of what's going to help you improve what you're doing, you have to use some of that gut, that inner intuition you have. So I would recommend first look in this little green column, this little green, it's not really a quadrant, but this little green area here, and see, okay, of these, have I done enough tests on my headline to make sure that I have at least the best headline that I can? Because it's low cost, it's decent benefit, it's an easy thing to optimize for. Next, do I need to change my overall messaging from pain to pleasure? Test that one out as well. And lastly, you could try to, if you're just getting no results, you might decide, hey, going from an image to a video, like if I were to test this guy next, that's just not going to do anything for me because I'm just getting no results in this realm here. So maybe it's time to go ahead and quickly switch out your offer and try something new. That is definitely an opportunity. Or you can go into the yellow area and start working on in some of these split test ideas as well. Again, these are some subjective measurements. I mean, cost and benefit, it's really up to you and the eye of the beholder. If doing videos is super simple for you, maybe you decide that this image versus video test is actually super simple to do and it's not a big deal, and you'd rather test that versus swapping out your offer. The idea here is you have a framework now. You have the ability for you to look at your cost and your benefits and do data-driven marketing the right way of using tools to run your split test and make improvements over time. And if you want help in doing this, you need the right tools in your toolkit. If you don't have the budget, if you don't want to use the ClickFunnels and the Kartras of the world, which have this functionality built in, there's a new tool on the market. I'm doing a lot of education around it. It's called Split Hero, and it allows you to run up to 3 of these tests at a single time. You can do it for yourself, for clients, and it has a current lifetime deal. It's exclusive to Income Mesh users and listeners of $97 for a lifetime of being able to run up to 3 tests at a time. And it lets you choose up to 4 different versions. So if we come back into this world here and we're looking, we can have, headline 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and run that test all at once and see which one performs. And let's say if number 4 is the winner, then you can run 4 off of that one and try to improve that as well. So it gives you a ton of power, and it does it in an absolutely super simple interface and user experience so anybody can do it successfully. All right, guys, so if you want to learn more about this offer, go ahead and click on the link in the description below or go to incomemesh.com/splithero to learn more about the deal. If you have any even doubts, if some of this resonated with you and you're like, hey, I can see how if I started to do some of this, I would get better results in my business. $97 one time is an easy fee to ask for the power that it gives you. There's other tools out there like Google Optimize and Thrive Optimize and everything with Optimize in it, right? But the problem with those is they're either too expensive, too restrictive, or too complicated. And this is kind of that nice happy middle in all of those 3 attributes. Go ahead and check it out. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment below on what split testing you've done in the past, whether it's been successful or not, and if you think Split Hero is a worthwhile investment. I'm John from IncomeMesh.com. I'd love to hear your feedback. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.